Hello, and welcome to Survivor Social, the Survivor podcast where we discuss and dissect Survivor with an emphasis on the social elements of the game. My name is David, and I am joined by the incomparable Tegwyth. How you doing, Tegwyth?
I'm doing so well. I am really excited to discuss this episode with you. Probably one of my favorite episodes of this season so far. So I think it's going to be a fun little episode with you.
Yeah, there are so many gems in this episode, and I cannot wait to get into them. And we've also had some gem of questions, multiple gems, lots of bejeweled questions this week that I'm really excited to get into. And if you would like to send in some of your own, please send them to us at survivorsocialpod@gmail.com, and we will read them right here. So without further ado, if you're ready, we can jump right into those questions.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the first question is asked from Brody, and he asks, are there any runners-up you think were robbed? And also, do you think any winners did not deserve their win? So I guess we can take it from the first part of that question.
So that's a huge question. There are some runner-ups that I really did love and that I probably would have voted for rather than the winner if I were on the jury. Obviously, I don't have like the full picture of what's going on. I probably would have voted for Cassidy. I probably would have voted for Chrissy. And then there's somebody, obviously, when we talk about like runners up and like just like people who are robbed. I mean, Suri wasn't really a runner up, but I definitely think like that's a big one to talk about. So those are some that just come to my mind just straight away. But those are people that I wouldn't say that they were robbed. I don't know. I think that I would have voted for those people rather than the winner.
Yeah, I agree. I would have to agree with that. I think there are some preferences that I may have that may differ from other people. And I guess you could make more of an argument, at least by my own logic, that someone was, screwed over if they had a chance to get to the end, but they didn't. But if you make it to the end and you're not able to convince that jury, then all that means is that in that context, that those people, that jury at that time, you just didn't get the vote. So I don't personally agree with that sentiment. Like you said, there's some people that I would have voted for. Like, I love Michelle Fitzgerald, and I think she's a competent player, but seeing the footage, I probably would have voted for Aubrey. But that doesn't mean that Michelle didn't deserve her win. So I guess that leads into the second part of our question. I know there are a lot of folks, especially like Chris Underwood, and we were talking earlier before we started about Gabler as well, and there's some folks who their win has been discredited, and that leads me to the question that Brody asks, do you think that there are any winners that did not deserve to win?
Yeah, I think we might be in agreement here where I always say that if somebody wins, they deserve the win. There's never somebody who doesn't deserve to win. It's a big talking point on my TikTok that I bring up, I want to say at least once a month. Because like if you thrive under the circumstances that you're given, then that's the best for you. That's why there's not like an America's vote. That's why, because we don't watch it like, it's not like Big Brother, say, where I in theory could go on Big Brother and watch literally every single thing that happens because it's filmed 24/7 and I have access to it. Survivor is edited down and we only see what the editors show us, right? So for example, Xander, everyone was so oh, how did Xander not get more votes and blah, 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 blah. But then in the exit interviews, all we heard was that Xander was actually not as respected isn't the word, but people just didn't feel like his gameplay was as good as maybe the viewers thought. But what the people see on the island is like the truth is the only thing that matters. And so I'm a big, you win and you're a winner. And I might not love the winner. That's why I always say I probably would have voted for somebody else. What about you?
Yeah, I don't think I could have said that any better. The only thing that I would add to that is, again, the context. We only know what we see, and we don't know how those people make us feel. And ultimately, if you spend 26, 39 days with someone, it doesn't matter if you think that they were competent. If you don't like them, and you don't want them to win $1 million just as a person, then a lot of other things don't matter. And I know people say that they can regret voting a certain way, and even if your opinions change in the future, ultimately that doesn't matter, because at that time when the votes were being cast, when it actually mattered, that is the opinion you had. And so
Yep.
everybody who won, I believe, deserved it, even if, like you said, we may have voted for somebody else if we were on the jury. But again, that's an edited version, 1% of 1% of what was actually shown. So yeah,
absolutely. And also the thing is, just a little bit, one more thing is, whenever I bring this up on my TikTok, people always comment on it saying like, I agree with you, except for they always bring up, what are the ones? It's always Gabler and it's always Chris Underwood. And sometimes they say Russell. And like the Chris Underwood is the one that always stands out to me, because it was Edge of Extinction. He went on, was the twist not the best? In my opinion, yes. I think that there should be no excuse that players come into the game that far into the game. I think that is just doesn't really make sense. You have way too much access to the jury. I think it's not fair to the players who don't get voted out. I have no problem really with when Rick Devens came back in. That was totally fine for me personally. But what was Chris Underwood he's playing to win. It's not his fault that was the twist for the season. And it's not his fault that he had the jury's ear for what was it, 30 some days, 32 days, maybe. It's just, yeah, he deserved that win in that sense. I also would have liked to see a Gavin win. I would have loved to see a Victoria win, but unfortunately, it was Edge of Extinction.
I completely agree. And this could be said about Survivor. This could also be said about RuPaul's Drag Race. I know a lot of folks think, the judges judged wrong or the wrong winner was crowned, but the contestants don't have control over that. And game theory wise, you assume everybody's coming to play and win. So what are we going to do? Chris Underwood, for example, went with what was given to him. Why would he not want to get back into the game if the game allowed for it, right? So don't condemn him. If you have a problem with the fact that he won, I'd say that's a bigger issue that you have with maybe the production or the people who are developing these twists that allow him to get back into the game. So yeah, very interesting. But we could go on and on about this forever. So let's just go to our next question from Lily. And Lily asks, who from seasons 41, 42, and 43 would you most like to see back?
Very good question. Should we say we limit it to one per season? Or I could say all of them. I think the casting in this new era has been the best casting ever. And so there are an unlimited number of people on these seasons that I would like to see back. So it's really but if I choose one per season, I would say from 41, I would really like to see Ricard back. From 42, I would really like to see Lydia back. She was 42, right? I think she was. And 43, it's so hard. I love Cassidy, but I don't know if I would honestly like to see how Jesse played if he got to play again. I think that would be really interesting. So I think those are going to be my three.
I like those choices. Mine are different, but those people are definitely high up on my list as well. I think I am influenced by either interacting with these people or having some sort of relationship. So I'd say for 41, I'm going to go with Sydney Siegel, just because we see her personality just bursting off the screen. And I've had the chance to interact with her a bunch in the past, and she is hilarious, wicked smart, just also very endearing. She has really bold opinions about things, or she's not afraid to speak her mind, and I love that. But she's also a very likable person, so I would love to see Sydney back. I think she got really screwed over by the hourglass twist, so I'd like to see some more of her. For 42, I would probably either say Lydia or Zach. I think Zach is another person who had a lot of potential and obviously incredibly smart, and I think if circumstances were a little differently.
Zach is one of the funniest people. If you don't follow Zach on Twitter yet, you absolutely have to. He is the funniest tweeter alive, especially when it comes to Survivor stuff. I'm obsessed with Zach. That's a great call.
Thank you. Yeah, he is hilarious. And I really could see him being the narrator for a season. Not necessarily the same as Rob Sesternino, but sort of in the same vein of really good observations, quirky point of view, and yeah, very funny. So I'm going to say Zach for 42. And then last, I want to pick 2. I'm sorry, I'm breaking the rule that we just set, but I think I'm going to go with either Lindsay, because I think she was my winner pick when 43 started. Lindsay was my winner pick, and I felt very strongly about her, and I felt like she had really good footing in the game until she, played herself out of the game. So I think coming in with a little bit of that knowledge of this is how it's going to feel like, I know what these emotions are going to feel like when I'm getting paranoid, and sort of I can prepare or try and mitigate that. I have hope for her, or Owen, just because I feel like he had a lot of potential, and we saw a lot of good moments from him, but he left me wanting more.
I'm obsessed with Owen. He was my winner pick. He was my preseason. He is my winner pick that has made it the furthest of any of my winner picks ever. And I'm obsessed with Owen. I think all really good picks. These seasons are so amazing. I could also say, I would like to see all of 44 back. There are an unlimited number of combinations that I could see, coming back and me being happy.
I agree. And that is a testament to the casting. I think so too. And 44 in particular, as we'll get into in this episode, they remind me of old school casting choices in the sense that a lot of them just jump off the screen and are larger than life. And it's not to say that the other new era seasons have not had casts that aren't fun or engaging, but you're never going to forget Jam Jam. You're never going to forget Carolyn. Even Danny, even Franny and Matt. There's so many unique, Carson, so many unique people. Jamie, I'm just going to list the entire cast if I don't stop now. But those people, the whole cast is just so bold in a way and unique in a way that I won't forget them. Danny fits into so many different roles. He physically rolls as well. He'll do his De Niro impressions. He'll roll. He'll fart. He's just amazing, and I love Danny. And it's a shame in a lot of ways that we lost in this episode. But let's not get too at ourselves. But if you're ready, we can just jump right into this new episode.
I'm ready.
Okay, so get back from Tribal, night 19. Carolyn is very upset about being left out of the vote, and she's crying, understandably. I'm a very emotional person, especially in competitive settings. I know you've shared that as well. So how would you have reacted in this scenario?
Oh, exactly. Exactly how Carolyn, I would have, here's the thing, right? It's her closest allies, the people that she thought that she could just totally lean on. You really can't trust anyone on Survivor, but you have to. And you really have to. And so it was Jam Jam and Carson that both left her out of this for a long time, I would have been even maybe more of a wreck. The fact that she was yelling and crying, and I was like, yes, I get it. I totally get that reaction, because it must have been really, really hard. And it was somebody that she wanted to work with. And not unfortunately, I'm happy that it ended up, how it did. But I really thought, I kind of wanted to see Carolyn do a revenge for Franny, because I love Franny so much. And honestly, the bet that Carson and Jam Jam did, their gamble paid off, because she did forgive them and she's still working with them. And I really didn't think that she was going to do that. Part of me wanted her to stick it to the man and really be like, I'm not going to work with you guys anymore, or I'll come back and get you. But she's a much bigger person than I am. And, she ended up being able to push that to the side. But yeah, I think I would have been like that, if not worse.
Yeah. I think so too, for me. And truthfully, I was a little shocked, and it was a little jarring the way that Jam Jam reacted when she was reacting so emotionally. And it may just be a product of the fact that Carolyn does react emotionally quite frequently. But the fact that Jam Jam walked away and was sort of just like, I've had enough, all right, it is what it is. You're going to feel how you're going to feel. I was actually very surprised about, personally. I was kind of just thinking, why is he tripping?
I don't know why he's tripping.
I don't know. Fully Natalie Bolton, why is he tripping? But they did mend things subsequently the next day. But and you're right.
Also, the thing that's interesting to me also is like she was bringing up like I wouldn't do that to you, right? She did do that to him, right, with the Josh vote, and then Jam Jam brought that up. But the interesting thing to me was that Jam Jam didn't. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Jam Jam also do that to her another time? Like, wouldn't this be like the second or third time that Jam Jam's left her out of a vote? Wasn't the Sarah vote? No, that was her. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Don't quote me on that.
I don't remember exactly. However, if it makes you feel any better, that was my gut instinct as well. When I watched it and she said, this was the first, this was the first time. And they said, well, this was the first time too. I thought to myself, I don't think it is. And if we were both thinking that, then perhaps there's some credence.
I need to go rewatch early episodes because I feel like there was something earlier on where Jam Jam, it was like fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice kind of a vibe, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe something Josh related. I don't know. But anyway, we then see Danny really trying to figure out who voted for him. And it was Heidi, and Heidi's trying to play it off. And then Jam Jam decides he's going to tell Danny that it was Heidi. But even being presented with the truth, Danny does not believe Jam Jam, which is funny because I feel like there has been a theme this season of people just denying the truth. Because we've had times where Jamie was like, this is exactly what happened with Kane, and people were just not buying it. And it's the same thing in this scenario, obviously not to the same degree, but
yeah, there was that. And there was also when Josh had the fake idol and he told people it was fake and they're like, no, it's not fake. Like this, a lot of times has been like people telling people the truth and them being like, nope, actually, it's actually false. That whole situation was very interesting to me because I honestly felt like Jam Jam maybe could have approached it in a different way because I kind of felt like the way he said it was almost could make somebody else suspicious because I mean they weren't really working together. They're kind of working adjacently, tangentially, but not like that close allies. So I'm not going to take, if you're not my close ally, I'm not going to take everything you say as the law because I don't really know you that well and we're not like that kind of a thing. But that whole thing was very interesting and very good for Heidi. Like Heidi was able to really like play that off and be like, wow, I can't believe he said that. All of that stuff. I thought that was great on Heidi.
I agree. I think she capitalized on it. And I also just think it worked to her benefit that Danny is already so skeptical of Jam Jam that he was already, ready to throw him under the bus and believe that he was the one who voted him. But anyway, day 20. We start with Jamie leading everybody in yoga. It is a little bit hokey for me with the whole, yes, we're at each other's throat and this is $1 million game, but we can still be friends and bond. And that is true. It is true. Don't get me wrong. But I just think the way that it went about was a little put on for me. But I don't think it's put on from Jamie. I really do think she means it. But if I was in that situation and I either knew that a group was controlling the game and I wasn't a part of it, or I'd just been slighted like Carolyn was, I would be very hesitant and it would probably be very forced for me to be all like kumbaya with everybody. How would you feel?
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel it's almost giving me season 23 is one of my least favorites just because like if I were on Coach's Tribe, like I would have to really like stifle down a lot of words that I would have to say, a lot of eye rolls, a lot of like if I think something, it's going to be on my face. And so I think that it would be a difficult, like, I'd be like, okay, I guess we'll go do this, especially after like, what was it the night before? It was just a huge blow up with like Carolyn and Jam Jam and Carson. And now they're all, doing kumbaya, what were you saying, like kumbaya together. But that might be the game. That might be the game that they're playing where it's like something happened in the night, but that's like a month ago. Who cares about that? And they just sit down and do what they need to do in the morning. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And if that's meditating on the beaches of Fiji, then so be it. But I feel like I would maybe have it one or two eye rolls, but that's just me, my cynical ways.
Yeah, I think so too. And I also think it has to do with the narrative of the season and what people believe, because some seasons are very strategic, some where everybody decides that things are very fluid and that things can change. And it seems like this is the case this season, and people don't take things as personally as they have in other seasons. And then there are also other seasons where things are just relationship driven. And like Guatemala, for example, is like a very relationship driven season where even though there is strategy, a lot of the decisions are based on who do we like, who do we not like, or Australian Outback, we got to let the good people win. We can't have the bad people win after Richard Hatch. So I digress. But essentially, yes, I think that I would probably be very skeptical as well and probably just go along with it. But if everybody else is doing it, if everyone else is holding hands on the Upolo beach and praying with Coach, I guess I'm just going to have to pretend I'm back in elementary school going to church again.
The one time you're allowed to give into peer pressure in your life, all the listeners out there, is when you're on Survivor. Giving into peer pressure on Survivor, not all the time, but sometimes is your one go ahead, because sometimes you gotta do.
Yeah, I think I would have a really hard time doing that in certain situations. Like I recently watched Vanuatu again, and I saw them drinking the kava, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have just said it's a lot like mud. And I don't know what it would take for me to just drink a coconut husk or a coconut shell full of mud, but you know, $1 million game, I'd probably do it.
People eat worms this season, so you know, Jamie seems to be very convincing. She's got people to eat worms, meditating after they're fighting. She can do everything.
That's true. Her smile is very magnetic. Mm-hmm. Good point. So Carolyn and Jam Jam talk and make up, like we said, and Jam Jam point blank asks Carolyn if she has an idol, and she denies it, which is interesting because she will later talk to Carson and reveal that she does have one. I want to jump forward a little bit, and I want to ask you, because cynicism seems to be one of the many things that bring you and me together, right, Tegwyth? And I want to know if you thought that Carson's reaction to cry immediately when Carolyn said that she had the idol, if you felt that was fake, because personally, yes, they might be very good friends. My gut reaction was, oh, he just wants her to play it on him. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that was my gut reaction as well. I do like how his first word that he said was, "I'm so proud of you." That was, I think, I don't know if it was genuine. Carson, as someone who has had the privilege to meet him, he is a very genuine person. He's very kind. He's someone who came up to me and knew me by name before meeting me, and is just like a very kind, genuine person. And so having that kind of knowledge of him, it's just such a kind thing. The first thing that came out of his mouth was, "I'm so proud of you," which is great. Like, jury management, if that's your goal for the long run, like, I'm like, oh my God, that's so great for us. No. He said, "I'm so proud of you." That was a great thing. The crying, I think, was relief that in his mind, he was like, she's going to play. The only reason why she's telling me is because she's going to play it for me. That's what I got in my head. But yeah. I think it came with like his, I am proud of you, but I'm very happy for me kind of a sentiment.
Definitely. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I would probably be elated as well. I mean, not crying necessarily, but I would be very happy if I was presented with that information. But yeah, you're right. He does seem very sincere. I'm not saying it wasn't sincere. I just think
but it's everything is calculated on Survivor. It's he everything that you say that's sincere, that's not, that's a lie. Everything that you do on Survivor should be, and probably is in Carson's sake, or for what he does, it should and is calculated. And so I do think that that cry, I don't think it was fake, but I do think it was for him. It was like, thank goodness that she has it, and why would she be telling me if she's not going to play it for me?
That's a good point. I like the way you framed that. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we do have an update. So kava does taste like mud, but it smells like ginger. So I do like ginger. So thank you for this information. I also love that your YouTube picture is a Slowpoke, underrated Pokemon. But yes, if it did smell like ginger, I'd probably be lured into drinking it. So I'm glad I know this now. And maybe I need to go seek out some kava. Don't really know where they have that in the Midwest, but
I can say you try it.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about that little moment with Carson and Carson and Carolyn, I did want to talk about, I don't think it is great gameplay to tell somebody that you have an idol and that you're going to play it for them prior to actually doing it, like prior to being at tribal council. And I've said this a couple of times in the past, and I was super worried here. And I don't think that Carolyn is someone that isn't going to do what she says she does. But in the moment when you're face to face with somebody who thinks they're going to get voted out and you have an idol, it's a lot easier for you to say, I'll play this for you, than it is to actually play an idol for somebody. The action of playing an idol for somebody and giving up your chance at being safe is a big thing to give up. And that's why I say that I don't think you should ever tell anyone, even if you're going to play it for them. And you should always do what like a Natalie Anderson did, where she plays it for somebody, do the theatrics at tribal council of like, I have this, I'm playing this for you, get the shocked look on their face, not the like manufactured shock, the actual shocked, like I didn't know this was going to happen kind of a vibe. And then because here's the thing, if you end up not actually playing it for them after you said, I'll play this for you, even if you go up to them afterwards and say like, oh, I'm actually not going to do it. And then they end up going out and they're on the jury. Like, you have to think about jury management. They might not hold it against you, but they also might, giving them that little bit of hope and then taking it away. So that's why I'm always in the camp of just keep it to yourself, even if you're absolutely going to play it for somebody, because what if you get to tribal council and you chicken out and you don't do it and you keep it for yourself? So I was a little bit worried there that Carolyn was going to not actually follow up on her word, which I think is not very good gameplay, but it ended up being fine. But I just think like in the grand scheme of things, to just do what Natalie Anderson did and just save it for tribal council.
I think so too. Once you create that expectation, if for whatever reason something happens and you're not able to follow through on that promise, that looks horrible. That being said, I think that if it had to be anyone, I understand it being Carolyn because she is very forthright. And I also think I will not hold this against her as much because of the fact that she held the information about her hidden immunity idol for a very long time, which is very impressive. And I also, don't quote me on this, but do you feel like since the hidden immunity idols have been introduced, people have been more recently been more forthcoming in sharing it? Or has that really always been a thing that people have been sharing their idols?
I feel like I don't know as well as I probably should. Like, I can't think off the top of my head. I think that like people are maybe now like there are more idols in play now. So it just seems like there are more people sharing about idols because there happen to be like 94,000 idols in play at any one time. I mean, not really this season as much now, but it's kind of more like we're seeing these conversations more and more because there are a lot more fake idols and idols in play. So I don't really know. I think we would have to kind of actually figure out, like go back and do some like math on how much it's actually shared versus how much it's actually kept to themselves.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know that. But you're right, a lot of it does have to do with the sheer number of advantages that are occurring in the game. So that is something interesting to think about. On a different note, when Jam Jam, Carolyn, and Carson are talking about the final three, do you genuinely believe that all three of them, because I know Carson seemed pretty gung-ho, but Carolyn and Jam Jam talk separately. Do you really want this as us as the final three? And I don't know if deep down that's what especially Jam Jam and Carolyn really want, because Carolyn asked that question again after they already talked about it with Carson, which makes me think that she has doubts, which makes me think that Jam Jam might too, and they're just saving face because they don't 100% trust each other. So they're just saying yes to each other's face. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up. I feel like, there are pros and cons to both, mainly because I think that this alliance, you're able to differentiate yourself pretty well in this alliance. This isn't somebody like a Lauren or a Tommy where they were so close together the entire time. or like a Dom and a Wendell, you know, like those kind of things where they're just incredibly, you know, making all the decisions together. It's very hard to differentiate the game. I feel like their games can be differentiated because they didn't go together all of the time. So I feel like if I were in an alliance and I wanted to, you know, sit with my alliance, I feel like this would be the alliance to do it, because I feel like you can be like, well, this happened, but this is where I did this, and this is whatever it is. You know what I mean? I really don't think that Carolyn wants to sit at the end with Carson or Jam Jam. I don't know, maybe one, but I definitely don't think both. I think Jam Jam is the same way. I think Jam Jam maybe more than Carolyn. Where I think Carson thinks that he might have a good chance sitting next to both of them, because I truly believe that Carson thinks that he's the one that's making all of the decisions in the group, which he might be. I don't know. I feel like on the edit, it seems like he is, but I don't know if that's actually the truth. And I think if Carson feels like that, then maybe if he's sitting with them, then he will be like, you know what, I was the one that made all of the decisions in this group, and so these two people are here because of me. Like, he could make that argument if he feels such. So I think I agree. After that long-winded thing, I do think I agree with you with, I think Carson would be fine sitting with both of them, where I don't think that Carolyn and Jam Jam necessarily want to sit next to both of them. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And taking a break from the strategy, we see a wonderful character moment where everyone's on the beach and Carolyn finds a piece of a lobster. She's already found pieces of a lobster before, but now she's sort of got like a good chunk, so to speak, of the lobster shell. And she says that she doesn't want it. And then Lauren says that she wants it, and they rock, paper, scissors for it. And Carolyn gets it, and she goes into the water. Why does she go into the water? So she can feel close to the lobster. I'm telling you, this casting doesn't get better than Carolyn. Come on.
That was such an amazing moment. I love when I feel like nowadays we don't see a lot of people going off into the water and swimming and like fishing and all of that stuff. And I love that we get that. That's why I've loved these last 3 episodes. The character moments, the moments of people on the beach. Even though I don't think I would have maybe loved the meditating if I was there, I did love seeing those moments of like real life, real survivor life. And I think that this was a really fun one. And also the fact that the crab leg or the lobster leg that she had in her hair the last episode was given to her by Jam Jam. Like, all of that stuff, I just really love hearing. And I love hearing that like backstory. And it's what makes Survivor such a fun show to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Those unique moments. Like, I wish we could have heard Carolyn singing Little Mermaid. I know for copyright reasons, they're not going to pay for that. They've only really done that with songs a few times. Like, I don't even know. The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow in Africa when T-Bird sings it, or when Helen sings Are You Lonesome Tonight in Thailand. Like, they don't really do that anymore. But if they would. That's
you know,
true.
the casting or the voting confessional from Rob Zanino.
Yes, and they cut it, and I remember someone, I think Jeff, telling me, like, they're never going to use that, but you know what? We still found out about it, and that's what counts. Did. So that being said, please release the unreleased footage of Carolyn singing The Little Mermaid. That is what I ask immediately.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, please, yes, everyone, write in. We'll start a petition. So, before we go to the immunity challenge, we get a quote from Danny in Confessional that I like very much. And I'm going to pull it up because I don't want to misread it. But he says, I didn't come here to take part. I came here to take over. And I appreciate the fact that he is ambitious and he knows what he wants, because I think a lot of people in the game are, saving face, and we don't see a lot of people being very cutthroat in confessionals, but I liked to see that Danny is still swinging and he's very gung-ho to take out one of the Tikas. And at this point, it seems like the target, so long as he didn't win immunity, would be Jam Jam. But fast forward a little bit and things change. So we're at the immunity challenge. It is last gasp. How would you fare in this challenge?
Bad. Unless I do say that whenever I see last gasp, I'm like, I should go. If I go on Survivor, I need to go train with some synchronized swimmers because they can like hold their breath for like 3.5 minutes. So I feel like if I actually did that, maybe I'd do fine. But other than that, I would be panicking and do really bad.
Yeah,
I feel like you would do well, David.
You think I would do well? Why? What gives you that impression?
I don't know. You're one with nature. I feel like you could really tune into the waves and be like, this is cool. No? Am I reading that wrong?
I think I would probably freak out. I think I would feel I get claustrophobic very easily. I live in a pretty small apartment, and if me and my boyfriend are just like in the little kitchen area at the same time while I'm trying to cook something, I'm like, can't, nope, nope, get out of the way. So being under some grates that have like, make me feel like I'm in an underwater jail cell, I'm gonna probably say no. But maybe I'll have a chance in the future to prove that statement incorrect. But I just love the fact that during this challenge, once some people have gotten out from that underwater jail, Lauren is quoting Jeff saying, "You gotta dig," and it's hilarious. And I think Jeff says probably the same words all the time.
Same 200 words over and over and over and over and over.
I'm glad you said it, so I didn't have to. But you're right, same 200 words. But
maybe he needs some sleep.
Maybe he does need some sleep. Are you mad at him? Is that what it is?
No, I thought it was funny.
Good. So yes, the challenge ends up coming down to Danny and no, I'm sorry, not Danny. It comes down to Heidi and Jam Jam. I say Danny because I assumed that he would win this challenge by a landslide.
Because of all his breath work?
Yeah, he's the master of breathing. I mean, I don't necessarily think he's Peter Harkey in the sense that he's mastered all of his holes. But I do think that Danny is probably very, very adept at controlling his breath at the very least.
He's the master of breathing, maybe not the master of holding his breath. I feel like whenever you see him breathing, he's always breathing out a lot. But I feel like that doesn't really mean that he has. I honestly thought Heidi was going to win this. I don't know why, just purely on vibes, but I really was like, Heidi's going to win this. I'm very happy with the Jam Jam win, though. Even though I put all of my points on Jam Jam to go out this episode, I was wrong, and I'm okay with that. But I really thought Heidi was going to win the whole thing. But I'm very happy for Jam Jam.
Yeah,
I loved the moment. I loved the moment when Danny jumped into the water. I thought that was such an endearing moment. I don't know why. It just looked like pure joy. And the fact that everyone sitting there were so, so happy for Jam Jam. That almost brought a tear to my eye. I
think it was an emotional moment. And I loved that. And I actually think this is a good time for this question. Numo Spect moderator asks, what do you think Jeff is thinking when Jam Jam wins immunity? Is it, I love when players dig deep and against the odds win immunity, or I know this is making great TV? I'm going to say that it's more of the former. I think Jeff really does love watching players overcome. And sure, maybe in the back of his mind as a producer, he's thinking, this will also be great. But there's so many of those moments. We don't desperately need one. They're going to happen naturally because of the nature of the game. So I also think these casts are very likable and Jeff invests in these people. So he is genuinely happy to celebrate with them. What's your take?
I totally agree. The one thing about Jeff is, I will say, I will complain about a lot of things, but the one thing I know that is true is Jeffrey Probst loves Survivor. He loves the game. He would not be with the show for 23 years if he didn't love the game and didn't want to continue to have these moments with cast members. I'm jaded for a lot of things when it comes to Survivor, but Jeff's love of Survivor, I don't think is one thing I'm jaded about. And I do think that he loves it when people are able to like overcome and just like surprise themselves. I mean, like I don't know if you ever notice this. I notice this every single time. When people win immunity, they're sweaty, they're gross, they're dirty, they're wet. And whenever a person wants to hug Jeff, Jeff goes in for that hug, because I think that he wants to just be a part of that moment. And that's why I thought it was such a beautiful moment. And I really do. I think when he's in the editing room, or like when he's at post-production, he's like, wow, this is going to be a great television moment. But I think in the moment, he's really enjoying the moment.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Jeff is very present, and that speaks to his reactions. I think he is very candid, and I appreciate that, and raw. And I think it is coming from a sincere place. So I am, that's my take. If people have dissenting opinions, I'd be very interested to hear, because I'll take all sorts of theories. Like, Jeff is actually a Terminator in disguise, and he's just a robot. I mean, his face doesn't move a lot, but that is probably Botox related. So I wouldn't be too quick to assume he's a robot for now.
Somebody on the TikTok live just commented, Jeff is siphoning their life force to stay young when he hugs them.
That's exactly what people say about RuPaul as well. So I'm seeing a lot of parallels. They both think they're therapists. They've also been hosting the shows for way too long. They harvest the life force off of the new blood who comes and participates in the game. Like, honestly, I think the next step is probably, actually, Jeff, I'll just let you say it.
It will be taken and executed.
Whoa! Oh, that's not exactly what I was thinking, Jeff. That was a little too far.
Jeff is so funny.
All right then,
Icon.
Jeff, you always keep us laughing. But whoops, that was Jeff's ghost from the future coming to say, no, don't quote me on that. So we finish the challenge. Jam Jam wins. We get back to camp, and now, because he's no longer available to be voted for, Jam Jam's target is no longer there and is moved over to Carson. Do you think this makes sense from a strategic point of view to go for Carson as opposed to Carolyn? I think so.
Absolutely. Especially if you're on that beach. Like, Carolyn is playing an emotional, well, people think that she's playing an emotional game, right? And so I think if people see somebody playing an emotional game, they think that they will have maybe, I don't know, not more control over what they do, but it's less threatening, I feel like, to some people who play. I think it was Adam Klein. I heard him on our HAP podcast the other day, where he was saying, like, is the new like strategy to go on Survivor and just totally, even if you're not emotional, or if you are emotional, just totally pretend like you're an emotional player and say that you're voting for this person because you don't like them, or because they rub you the wrong way, but never because of strategy. And I think because the people who are around her, like, they just don't see her as a big threat as they do with Carson, because he is so good at puzzles, especially when you get later on in the season. Puzzles become very important typically in theory. And so I think it made perfect sense. But what did you think? Were you on the Carson voting out train? Did it make sense to you?
100%. He's been the most well-connected, and I think people realize that he's very well-connected. I do think that although people have sort of seen that Carolyn's kooky facade is just a facade in some ways, and no, it's a real extension of her. Let me not say that. But I think they realize she has a lot more depth, and she's a lot more calculating than they have given her credit for. So I would support this decision if I was not a member of the Tika 3, and I would have to target either Carolyn or Carson. I would definitely target Carson. So yeah. So the only last thing that we haven't covered before we get to Tribal is the fact that Carolyn is a little concerned because she does not want to have Danny play an idol and then she ends up being the one who's eliminated. But again, I don't think that's another reason why Carolyn should not be bringing that hope to Carson that she is going to play the idol for him. I think that if she has those concerns, keep them to yourself. And once you get to Tribal, you make a decision based on how you feel. And he will never know, which granted, you might want to play it on yourself, but he will never know if you intended to play it on him if you don't tell him. So
yeah, absolutely. And I also want to just say, I want to give major props to Carolyn because like her reads are spot on. Now, maybe she did get somebody come and like maybe something was edited out and somebody came and told her this, but I mean, the fact that she was like, I think it's Carson, I think it's Carson, I think it's Carson. And she even told somebody to their face, is this the real plan or is this the fake plan? And like, she spot on reads, and she's just such an intelligent person, player. And I just have thoroughly enjoyed watching her on this season. But very much so, like the fact that she saw this coming, I think is just incredibly ingenious, and it shows you how in tune she is with the tribe and with like their lies and their truths and all of that stuff.
I think so too, and I think it also shines a light on some of the weaknesses of Danny's game at this point in time, because he was the person that Carolyn asked, is this a real plan or the fake plan? And Carolyn later says, he was just saying that we were fine and everything was fine, and he was kind of short with it and reassured me, and that was it. And Danny should know better. I think that Danny has known better in the past, and it may just be the fact that he's confident, or maybe he's tired, or it could be so many different factors. But whatever the reason is, I was kind of disappointed that Danny decided to drop the ball here at the end, because you don't play every day like it could be your last. And if you genuinely think that there's a way that you could get Carolyn on your side, even if you're voting Carson, I don't know, just try and be more convincing with it, right? So anyway, I still really enjoy you, Danny, and we'll get some great Danny moments down the road. But so we get to Tribal. And again, Jeff is an instigator. And again, Jeff says the same 200 words over and over and over again, as he normally does. But he is a little bit more, more of an instigator, this Tribal. And so is Danny. Danny says to Carolyn, go ahead.
That I don't even what exactly did Danny say? Because I actually don't even remember what started that whole conversation.
I actually think it came from something Jamie said. And I'm not entirely sure on the specifics of what Jamie said, but I think it was merely that Carolyn was asking for some clarification, or she felt like Jamie was perhaps contradicting herself and just wanted to clear things up. And Danny was not having it.
Somebody on the TikTok, somebody said it's something that Lauren said, and I'm pretty sure Lauren said the difference between like having like not practice but being on the season, like what's the word? It's experience versus thank you. Life with Lay, thank you. Experience versus emotions is what Lauren said, and that's what kind of started this whole thing. And I had a problem with that too, because here's the thing. Everybody on this, nobody here has any experience of Survivor except the same amount of experience that every other person, because it's a full newbie season. And so the fact that people are saying like, oh, they just don't have this much experience or whatever, I didn't even feel like they were talking about like outside of the world experience. Because if that's the case, then Carolyn has a great amount of experience. I just thought that was a whole like weird thing to even bring up, just because I just didn't see how it made sense in this season, because it was all newbies, so no one has experience.
Yeah, I don't know why that was really brought up in the first place, but again, sometimes you just say things at Tribal. Sometimes you just say things when you're on the hot seat to get out of the hot seat, or paint the target on somebody else, or just get yourself out of uncomfortable situations. So I get that. I feel bad that I mixed up Jamie and Lauren saying it, but
I think they were sitting right next to each other.
Gotcha. I also have to say, I think that they have become a pair in a lot of ways. They voted together in the last Tribal, and I also don't see them winning. So I think, unfortunately, in the back of my head, I've almost just, not them two in particular, there were other people when they were still there, but at this point, they have fallen into the category for me of people who did not have a chance at winning, unfortunately. So I think that's why I was thinking about them almost interchangeably. But they do stick out in my head when I think about them otherwise.
Yeah. No, I get that. I think the edits kind of tell you a lot, tell you what you need to know in terms of that. But I felt like that whole talk at Tribal was very interesting, because I felt like the thing I love about Carolyn is that she is herself, like all of the time, even though she's playing a game where people lie and betray and all this stuff. She is 100% herself, and she'll be herself to Jeff. She will defend herself. She will say, you know, I don't like that. That was, that annoyed me, like all of that stuff. And even at tribal council, and I just love that she can be herself. I will say, Jeff at tribal council kind of felt like towing in to like almost crossing the line to sassy, going back to sassy Jeff, but then he brought it way back, and I really miss sassy Jeff. And I wish,
we had a glimmer.
Maybe not that moment, but I was like, do it other times, Jeff. Come on.
Yeah, we had some moments where Jeff was, dare I say, a little bitchy. And on this podcast, I like to say that we are, you know,
finally a spokesperson for the bitches.
We are a spokesperson for the bitches here. And Jeff was almost tiptoeing into that category, and I was really waiting for him to just plunge right in. But unfortunately, we didn't get it, and he wanted to be kind, and I appreciate that, because sometimes in the past he could be a little brutal. I think back to tribals like in Philippines, where Jeff says to Abby Maria, like, you didn't realize that you were not well liked and you're sort of abrasive, and she just starts crying. And I think she probably knew it deep down, but hearing the host of the show say that to you is definitely a little jarring. So maybe since he's had some of those experiences, he's a little bit careful about when he talks to players in the game about their own behavior or how they act. So I think from a gameplay standpoint, as a competitor, I would appreciate that he would hold back and not show any sort of awareness or feeding into a narrative, right?
Agreed. That's why I like sassy Jeff, not like brutal Jeff. Like, you know, I like when it just says like funny, silly quips, but not like taking somebody down with his words.
Definitely. Although that has sometimes given us some great moments, like when he was talking back to coach and he said something along the lines of like, "Oh, did a chief give you that name?" or something. I don't know. Just Jeffisms. And I also feel like it also has to come down to the players themselves, because I think certain players he would be a little kinder to. And this brings up a comment made from Numo Spec moderator who says, I also think he has his favorites like Jim, and Carolyn. And I agree. So I think he feels comfortable enough with Carolyn to like go there a little bit, but he cares about her enough to say, okay, maybe I'm just not going to go fully in right now. Right.
Yeah. Speaking of that whole tribal, I think that Carolyn's math that she was doing in the voting booth was I feel like we haven't seen somebody take that long in a voting booth in a very long time. And the fact that it like her vote, if she had voted Lauren, it would have been a tie. Or was it Lauren? Did she have down? Yeah, it was Lauren. I think it was Lauren that she had down, or was it? I can't remember. And I just think that's so incredible that she was like doing all of this on her fingers, and she was obviously there for a long time. And the fact that she changed her vote to Danny meant that Danny went home. And so she, again with the great read.
Yeah, another great read. That being said, writing someone's name down and then crossing it out is not necessarily the best thing to do. I know it really would have just forced a tie, and Lauren would have been the only vote for Lauren, I believe. So she wouldn't have been in danger.
2-2-2-1. But then 2 would have been gone. But still very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And so
how do you go ahead?
No, after you.
No, I was just going to ask, how do you feel about the discussion of wasted idols versus not wasting idols? Because in theory, because I have two things on this, and I'll let you think about the question. So my first thing is, I think it is absolutely bonkers that Heidi did not play her idol. And I know in theory, she made the correct, quote unquote, correct move because she did not play her idol. But in my mind, right, hindsight is 2020. We can always say, going back, like, oh, good thing she didn't play it. She still, yes, I guess good thing she didn't play it. She still has her idol and she didn't need it. But if Carolyn hadn't changed her vote, it would have been a 2-2 tie between Danny and Heidi. And there was nothing she could have done about it. And people could have sent Heidi home. There was a very, very high chance that it could have been Heidi. And in my brain, it was, in that moment, not a good idea to not play her idol. I feel like she should have played her idol. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this because they'll be like, oh, she wasted it. But I feel like I'm a big proponent of, like, I would rather waste my idol and when I thought I was going home than go home with an idol in my pocket. And I am like, she was inches away. She was so close to being voted out with an idol in her pocket. And that really scares me. And that's why I also think it's very interesting that people are saying that Carolyn wasted her idol. But I really don't consider it a waste. I don't know. What do you think about this?
I don't think it's a waste, especially this far into the game where things could really go in any direction. If you're so close to that $1 million and you didn't play the idol in Carolyn's perspective, then I really don't blame her. I think people in the future will just remember the outcomes, unfortunately. And I think that Heidi will get a lot of credit for not playing it, which I don't necessarily think she deserves.
Like, I think her read was off.
Yes, and I think she's a great player, but
yeah, like, I think holding on to that was great, but I don't think, like, I think her read was off, and I think that she didn't think that, like, which is in my brain a bad move, even though she still has an idol. But I'm a contrarian when it comes to that. I don't know why, but it's just the way that people say, like, oh, they wasted it, they were smart for keeping it, really, like, bugs me, because in that moment, it's so much on the line. You would rather just go home with an idol in your pocket and just say, I wanted to play it safe. I don't know. It's weird to me.
I agree. And I think it really does come back to looking at it in hindsight, because you can go back and say, oh, well, all the pieces really were put together and it's so obvious that everyone was going to vote the way they did. How could you not see it? But like you said, in the moment, you do not know. You just don't know. So I don't blame Carolyn, and I don't blame I don't like Heidi's not playing it as much, but I guess I can understand it. But given the way that she has sort of been out of the loop on certain things in the past, doesn't surprise me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that. I guess I'm not as gutsy as some people. Like, if my name had been written down 2 tribals prior, and I have an idol in my pocket, and I don't know, I feel like if somebody plays an idol and my name has been written down 2 tribals prior, I'm playing my idol. I am getting rid of that thing. I don't know, but I'm not as tough as Heidi is. Well,
props to you, Heidi. And again, Heidi is safe, and the vote ends up being 3-2 to 2, right? 3-2 to 2, and Carson has the idol played on him by Carolyn, and Danny is sent packing. And before we get into what this means, can we just talk about the De Niro face a little bit? He was obviously well prepared for that, and I think the face itself, great, wonderful. I took umbrage with the fact that they lingered on it for so long. It was silent, and Jeff was just sort of staring at him. And I know it's going to be remembered as like a top 10 cringe moment of the new era, undoubtedly.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with it. Honestly, the Danny moments have been some of the best moments. The fart, that's really all I can think about other than this. Like, I am just, his breathing, like, all of the stuff that he does he's an icon, and I love this. And honestly, a lot of people have played Survivor, right? A lot of people have played Survivor. I want to be able to go and somebody be like, oh, you did what? And then if you're like, oh, I'm the guy that did the Robert De Niro. Oh, you're that guy? He is going to be remembered. And honestly, props to Danny. So good.
That's fair. I'll give him points for that. Memorability, definitely. And it also, I appreciate it because he wasn't trying to just make a moment. It seemed like this was something that, like he said, his friends, he talked about it with them. And this is something that he wanted to do for a long time. And it seems sincere. So I appreciate that very much. Danny will be sorely missed from this season. And I'm sure lots of brackets have been negatively impacted by this. How is your bracket doing?
I'm actually second. I'm second on the bracketology league, so I'm doing pretty okay. I'm happy about it.
That's awesome. And for those of you interested in brackets as well, we have a really cool ad coming up for you right now.
My name is Jonah Fielko, and I'm the CEO of Bracketology.tv, fantasy sports for reality television. We offer fantasy games for shows like The Bachelor, Survivor, Big Brother, RuPaul's Drag Race, and counting. You start by creating a community. Within your community, you can create a fantasy league for each show that you want to play fantasy games for. Within the league, you can choose up to 3 of our 4 game types, and our most popular is the Advanced League. Choose a team of contestants, and depending on what they do and say during the episode, that's how your team will gain or lose points each week. We also have elimination-style games like our Confidence Pool. This is where you choose how confident you are that each contestant will survive elimination that week. And we've also got March Madness-style brackets. Come back a couple hours after the episode to check your scores and watch you climb the leaderboard. Bracketology is free to play, so grab your friends, your family, your coworkers, and head to bracketology.tv for more info.
I can't help but chuckle when I see that ad because I always remember when we played it and it was right after Brandon had gone. And I'd say like 4 or 5 people all had Brandon as their top pick in that example in that ad. And that just, the timing, it always gets me. Good times. But now it is time for award season. I'm very excited to give out some awards. So first we are going to give out the Social Butterfly Award to the individual we feel has played the best socially this week. Tegwyth, is there anyone who comes straight to mind for you?
So no, because I feel like at this point in time, it's going to be such a it's like a difficult thing to like who is playing the best socially because people are so set in their ways and like so much has been going on. I will say part of me wants to give it to Carolyn. And by part of me, I mean all of me, because of the fact that she had a blow up with her allies. She had a huge fight with them. And then the next day they were allies again. And they were working together again. And because Carolyn can get away with that kind of thing and do that kind of thing. And she also has great reads on people, which I also think is a good, it doesn't mean that she's like, it's a different side of social, right? It means you're social enough with people to understand when they're telling you the truth and when they're kind of maybe not. That means you know them well enough. And that's kind of why I think I want to give it to Carolyn this episode. Yeah, that's what I'm going to, I almost went with Carson because Carolyn ended up playing an idol for Carson, which I think is a great thing for like a great social strategy, you know, shows that you have a good connection with somebody. But I just kept landing back on Carolyn. So that's what I'm going to go with.
I originally wanted to say Carolyn as well for the same reasons, but I think the fact that she was not the target and Carson was the target makes me think that her stock socially is probably a little bit lower because people are more comfortable going further with her. And I still think Carson handled the situation better when Carolyn was upset because of the last tribal. Jam Jam walked away. He sort of got fed up and walked away. So Carson didn't. Carson is always very even keel. He keeps his wits about him. He doesn't have huge reactions that are super negative. He was very expressive and cried, and so he can show emotions. I think I'm probably going to give this week's Social Butterfly to Carson.
I think a very valid, very good choice.
Thank you. And now on the opposite side of the spectrum, the driver of the Beep Beep Survivor Social Struggle Bus.
Big one. I don't know. Can I just answer that? No. Because here's the thing. Like, I think that this game is like, at one point I thought it was going to be like it was going to be Heidi because of everything that was going on with Danny. But, you know, it honestly doesn't really matter anymore because Danny's gone. So even if it was that, then I don't think that really should play into that. Part of me wants to go with Lauren. And I think that's who I'm going to end up going with this episode, specifically because of Tribal Council. And I know that she wasn't the only one to talk about this, but I think at Tribal Council saying that, like, that comparison that she had where she was saying like, you know, whatever it was, emotions versus experience, I think was very much a dig at people who play with emotions, which is fine. You can do that. But I just don't think that's a very good, way to continue gaining social, like gaining those connections. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like it's actually, now that I'm talking about it, I honestly don't know if I want to go with Lauren. It's very hard at this point of the game. Like everyone knows everyone so well. So it's really hard to choose. And I can't choose Danny. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just going to go with Lauren. I don't have a lot of reasons.
Yeah, it is tough. I don't know either. I want to say Lauren for the same reason. However, I also sort of chalk it up to her just going along with the narrative. I'll be honest. We've all been in those situations where we just want to say whatever to get ourselves out, right? And I almost feel like she's just saying it to say it, to answer a question when Jeff asks you a question, because sometimes you want to give that non-answer, and we can't all be as good at Brian Heidick as saying nothing, but also saying a lot at the same time and making people think that you answered their question when you really didn't. And I guess for that reason, the fact that we weren't convinced by that is enough to give Lauren the award for this week. But we're really splitting hairs. I think that everyone's trying to do their best. I mean, if Danny hadn't gone, I would probably want to choose him, but
yeah, I really don't know. I feel like there's a good case for Jam Jam, but then also not a good case for Jam Jam. I think that there's a good case for Jamie, but also not. I don't know. We're down to how many? 6? It's very difficult when we get down here because it is like comparing, honestly, like kind of comparing apples to oranges, but also not. I don't know. I also think that because Carolyn was willing to throw Lauren's name down, like maybe could be a bad. I don't know. I'm grasping at straws here. I feel like they're all playing good social games, kind of right now.
I'll agree with that. I think Lauren because we have to. Which I'm sorry, Lauren, that you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lauren, but. That concludes the awards portion of this episode, and now we are going to move on to some questions from TikTok.
Yes, well, we also have another one from Numospect moderator that I just want to. This is just a great one. Did anyone catch that Carson at the challenge saying, "I practice this in my bathtub"? Carson is so funny, and like. Just the fact that he said that is just iconic because I'm pretty sure a lot of people have practices in their bathtub. Have you?
No, I do not. I do not try to make my peaceful bath time a torturous mental strain type of situation. I just like to add some bubble bath and have a good time. So gonna be a no from me. Wait, hold on.
haven't either.
I actually got some intel that someone else wants to share their opinion on this. I asked him, and he said the following words.
I mean, my ass.
Jonathan Penner, that was a little vulgar. Okay, all right. Duly noted, Penner. We know you don't like to suffocate yourself in the bathtub, but
I am obsessed with Penner. All right. So we have, hold on, let me just scroll. We have, this is a question from user with a lot of numbers. I don't know what their name is. Do you think individual reward challenge wins are worth it since it puts such a huge target on your back?
I think it's worth it if you're down in the numbers and there's absolutely no chance for you to win otherwise. It's a really good way to curry favor with people and also potentially create divisions with other people. So I think if you're at the top and you're doing really well and you like the way that things are going, nope. I say try not to. If you get chosen for it, great. You get chosen for it. It's not within your control. I mean, granted, it'll not be great if you are left out of some conversations at camp and you want to be. However, I think personally it's most advantageous when you are at the very bottom. What's your take?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that there is a way for you to, win a reward, an individual reward, and not be that big of a deal. But I also think that like any time that you show that you are good at challenges will put a target on your back. I honestly don't even think it has anything to do with going away from camp. because you still have people that are coming away from camp with you, and you are missing out on stuff, and people, there is resentment. But I honestly think more than that, it's the fact that you're showing them that you're good at challenges. Like when we talk about Noelle, like Noelle won that against all odds, and it really put a huge target on her back. And hence that was the reason why she was voted out. Franny won 3 challenges at that point, an immunity, and then right after that, a reward. And so again, that puts a target on your back. So I feel like just being good at challenges in any way will put a target on your back.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's why I think they should bring back things that don't have to do with like, exhausting yourself. Like I think that they should bring back those the story ones where like they tell you a story and you have to go answer the questions, like things that like value different things and not just pure strength and determination and grit, but also like mental capacity and other things, because then I don't think those targets would be that big because you wouldn't know what kind of challenge is coming around the corner.
Yeah, I think so too. Bring back the coconut chop too.
Yes, love the coconut chop. Love the coconut chop. We have a question from Caliban 1. Do you think this jury would care that Carson is 20 and not give him the win because of his age? I added the because of his age at the end.
Well, that's a hard question to ask, not knowing this group very well. They all seem to really like him, but perhaps some of them could think, you have to ask yourself, am I comfortable letting this person win? Am I comfortable saying I was beaten by fill in the blank? And I think people might have a hard time saying that about Carolyn. I think people could potentially say that about Carson too, if his age is a factor and they feel like he does not have lived experience and they don't want to feel like they were outsmarted by someone that they perceive perhaps as immature in some ways or lacking in life experiences. So perhaps, but I still think he has a strong case. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that like, I feel like he goes like, and I know that this isn't the best like description or whatever, but I think like he goes to college, he's smart, he wants to work for NASA, like he has all of these things that they definitely know about. He's not just, and I'm not saying that not knowing what you want to do, like I honestly still don't know what I want to do and I'm like 40 years old, so it doesn't really have anything to do specifically with that. But I think from a jury's perspective, are they okay giving over $1 million to this person? Do you think that they're gonna like waste it? Do you think like whatever it is? And I think that it is going in his favor that he's 20, but he's 20 and he has like other things that they might see as the money would be going to good use kind of a thing. I don't think that that's totally accurate, but I think that they'll do it. I mean, Marianne was 21, wasn't she? They had no problem voting for her. I think if you do a good final tribal council, I think the jury is okay giving you the money. Like, I think that there are very few times when they're like, I don't know that I want to give this person this money. And I think you're right. I think maturity has a lot to do with it. And I think it just has to do with like, if they say what they want you to say, like at final tribal council, I think that they will give it to you. So I maybe kind of disagree with myself earlier. Like maybe back earlier in Survivor, they would have thought about like, will this money go to good use? But I think now it's more about, did you earn your place in final tribal council? And did you convince us that we were the right one? You were the right one.
Yeah, I agree. I think it has to come down to that. It comes down to that. It comes down to respect. And I also don't think that Survivor is going to cast young people who have absolutely no grasp or real world experiences. I've heard casting folks say that they don't want people who don't have any life experiences. They want people who, even if you're young, you have to have something to show for that. And Carson absolutely does. Marianne absolutely does. They can both hold their own. They can both talk to anyone about anything at any time. And I think those are all points in their favor, especially Marianne, who already won. But anyway, Who's our next question from?
Well, I just have another point. A point. Caliban also said people brought up Xander being young. Also, which is a great point on the other side, where he didn't really get many votes, but it's like that in that case, it's almost like if they have a game that you respect, right, they'll vote for you. And in that case, they didn't respect Xander's game compared to Erica's. So I think it ends up not being it being more on the game level now rather than being the, like, I don't know. But again, yeah. I've never been on a jury, so maybe one day I'll be able to figure out what that all means, right?
Maybe, yeah. And age is a factor, but I don't think it's the defining factor. I mean, go back even to Nicaragua, and Fabio was how old? Mm-hmm. Right? And obviously there wasn't a huge range of people who were in their 30s because that season was meant to be a huge age divide. But I mean, I can understand why Chase Rice got votes, because I would be a little concerned about what's Fabio going to do with this money if I vote for him. Granted, I still think he's great, and I probably would have voted for him because he's very likable. But yeah, I don't know. Just something to think about. Age is definitely a factor.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to think of the whole person. I had another question on here that I've lost, and I can't seem to find it because I'm getting so many likes. Hold on. Oh, people are asking me who I'm interviewing. I'm actually not interviewing anybody. Me and David are just chatting about Survivor. Where is it?
It's just the OGs this week.
Here. We have another one. So somebody asked what we think about Ozzy's gameplay in general. Like Ozzy, just like Ozzy the player.
Well, I know you mentioned earlier that you're not a huge fan of South Pacific. I am. I love South Pacific, and I don't think that he is necessarily the most strategically adept. I'll put it that way, to be kind. I love Ozzy in a lot of ways, but impressed by his Cook Islands game in a lot of ways. Not very impressed by certain aspects of his Micronesia game, although he probably would have done really well if he had not, been taken out the way he was. And last but not least, at the very end, I'm not even going to talk about game changers, but I think that in South Pacific, sorry, is that rude? But he was not really a horse in that race, in my opinion. But
we don't have to talk about game changers for a lot of reasons.
Good, I agree. But I think that when I think Ozzy, I just think of For Revenge, basically, and we will be adding that soundbite to our sound panel immediately, because that is what I think of. But his strategy of willingly, you have to know your strengths, and that's what I give Ozzy credit for. I like Ozzy because he knows that his physicality is what he does best. He doesn't claim to be a social mastermind, a strategic mastermind. He knows his physicality is what wins him challenges and gets him far in the game, right? And so the way that he maneuvered through South Pacific and was willing to get voted out and then come back in with the confidence that he would be able to win those challenges against the other people who are voted out on Redemption Island, that is what impresses me most about Ozzy. What about you?
I just like him as a player. I think he's fun to watch. I'm not a huge person about I don't really put a lot of stock in the physicality of players. Mainly it's just like if I were ever on a jury or on a tribe or whatever, somebody winning immunities, I don't know that would impress me in the final, like at the final. I don't know that I would think about it that much. But Ozzy is the exception to the rule. I just really like watching Ozzy be Ozzy. And like, I like watching Ozzy like hug a pole for like 6 hours and like fish and do all and climb up a palm tree and do all of these things that I could never do in my life. And I just think that I don't know. I just think he's a fun character on a screen, and I like him. I don't think he's the best game player in the whole world, but I also don't think he's the worst. So, there's that. Like he's a happy medium in my mind. And if somebody's a good player on my screen and a happy medium, I will not complain at all. I am fine with that.
I agree. And Ozzy also is someone who we live vicariously through. We're like, when we see him going through that pole or that zip line thing, and he's got his legs in the air and he flies, I always think about that. And I'm like, that's peak Ozzy. That's what I want to be in my day-to-day life. When I'm just at work, when I think about Ozzy, which doesn't happen very often, but if I think about Ozzy, I'm thinking he's so free. He just goes with the flow, and that's what I want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
aspirational Ozzy.
Absolutely. We have another question from BR Bauer. Who is your favorite all-time player or season? So why don't we do your favorite all-time player and then your favorite all-time favorite season?
Okay. I'm not going to come at it from a strategic point of view as I may have in the past. I'm going strictly with enjoyment of watching.
Strictly personal, Will.
Yes. And I'm sorry, I'm saying two answers, but it's a tie between Helen Glover and Bobby John Drinkard, because I could watch Helen eviscerate people with her words all day. I could simultaneously also watch Bobby John bash himself in the head after he either screws up a challenge or wins a challenge, depending on his mood. So, yeah, I'm going to have to say either one of those. How about you?
And what's your favorite season?
China. Yeah. I know we started with 16 people, and we had a final 3, so it was statistically the easiest to get to the end, but I don't even think about that. The thematic elements, the grandeur, the characters, what a killer cast, killer location. Yeah, China will always be my favorite season of Survivor.
So good. So my favorite all-time player is Christian Hubicki. I had a full emotional breakdown when he got voted out. And he just makes me smile. Somebody who's that smart, I just want to be in that person's brain for a day. Just be like, what is it like to live your life when you are that smart? And I just love him. He just seems so kind and loves the game. And I really, really, really love him. And if there's ever a second chances, and if Christian Hubicki is not on that season, I will riot. Just know that now. And I have, when somebody asks me my favorite season, I say I have 3, and I know that's not fair, but there are 3 distinct categories for favorite seasons that I think that I would have. So I have my favorite season, just kind of with no caveat, just love watching the season. Then I have my favorite underrated season that I think deserves more love than it gets. And then I have my favorite season for nostalgia reasons. So like for me, why I love it. So my favorite overall season is Heroes versus Villains. That I feel like I don't need to say anything on that. It's so good. I love Sandra as a winner. I love that Russell's a loser. And I just I really like that season. Just great season. And that's not a hot take. My favorite underrated season is Guatemala. I also think that's not a hot take. A lot of people really love Guatemala. I think that it's such a good old school season with some really like great lines, like the "I hope you get eaten by crocodiles" or whatever it is. It's such an iconic like leaving line. I personally know somebody on that season that I met while I was watching the season, which was really, really fun, which means it meant a lot to me. And then also it just seems like a fun location, but also so grueling, so hot. They weren't allowed to swim when they were there. So all of that stuff really just, I think, makes it. And then also first time you see a hidden immunity idol, like so good. And then my favorite like nostalgic season for me is the first season that I watched live would be David versus Goliath. I think it's a great newbie season, and I think it's a great one to start people out on. I think China's also a good one to start people out on, but I really loved being able to watch Survivor live, like people like my boyfriend had for his whole life, and just experience it. So those are my 3. It's a very long-winded answer, but I have brought it down to a science, because if I ever do lives on TikTok, I get asked all the time, and I've boiled it down to a science.
Well, I appreciate that. The only thing that confused me was that you called David versus Goliath nostalgic, but I understand it in the connection of your own life, right? Yes. In your own personal way. But I was really expecting like something from I was expecting Pearl Islands personally, but
I love Pearl Islands, but see, that's not because I just binged Pearl Islands. Right. It's good, but it's not nostalgia for me. Nostalgia for me is the first one.
That's fair.
We have one more question. We'll do one more question.
Yep.
And then this is from Life with Lay. Who is a one-time player that you wish could play again?
Helen Glover. Every time.
Well,
Helen Glover.
I was going to say, I would say Christian Hubicki, but let's choose somebody that we didn't already choose.
Okay. Very hard.
Winners are allowed. You can choose a winner.
Well, I don't need to. Dina Bennett. I think that she contributed to the evolution of strategy in a lot of ways. I think she was a great character. She gave us really great moments, and she just seems like a genuinely cool, down-to-earth, awesome person. So, yeah, Dina.
Answer.
Thank you.
I think I would say Sean. What's Sean Rector? I think he would be so interesting to watch as in his life now. I think he was a great character on his season. It's such early Survivor, so the gameplay was like not the most advanced, but I don't know. I just think he would do really well. And he's also not as in the Survivor like sphere that we all are, which I think actually could be to his benefit in this new era. So I honestly think that would be a really fun person to see again.
I completely agree. I adore Sean. I think he is absolutely hilarious. He created so many great moments, and he is another person who can't help but be himself. And yeah. I love that about Sean and all of my favorite Survivor contestants. So that was a great question.
He would be the person that like when Kelly Wigglesworth that was on Second Chances. It was Kelly Wigglesworth and the vegetarian lady. What's her name? But she's not a vegetarian. Yep, Kimmy. Thank you. I feel like if they were to do a Second Chances where like we vote, like he would be somebody that I would like refresh vote, and I would be like, I feel like I would try to single-handedly get him on that season because I just love him so much, and I think he'd be so great.
Well, you let me know when that happens. I'm sure I'll know, but we will coordinate it, and we will be refreshing and clicking nonstop. So.
Yes.
Thank you so much for us. Survivor Social. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted their questions. If you want your questions answered, be sure to reach out to us at survivorsocialpod@gmail.com, and we will answer them right here. But until next week, I hope you all have a wonderful week and anticipate all of the greatness that Survivor Season 44 has in store, and we will see you then.